How are you?
Morning.
How are you?
Good.
How are you?
Good to see you.
Really nice Christmas.
Of course. Of course.
Well, as you are all aware, this is the charge that was filed was dated 17th. That was on Friday, and they filed yesterday. And as soon as it was filed, it was served on them, and they had an interaction with him. And of course, you are aware of the fact that law requires that charges can be amended and filed even on the eve of the judgment of any case. So the mere refusal to take the plea today is one of the several antics employed by the defendants to delay this case. But I want to assure you that the 3 days given by this honorable court shall be properly utilized, notwithstanding the fact that today has already been frustrated by an act of technicalities. We are ready to take it up tomorrow.
When you say frustrated, who masterminded the frustration?
Of course, the defense.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
How are you?
Okay.
So,
I just took over the matter, and you can see that God was on the throne as regards to these proceedings.
so were you able to consult your client as regards the charges?
Yes, I've now consulted my client, nnamdi Kanu, as regards the 15-count charge. Some of the statements made by Nnamdi Kanu that were also not clear, which I pointed out to the court. The prosecution has been able to give me another clearer copy, which is legible. And with that, we will take the next step. Tomorrow, no one is running away from plea being taken. But the point we made today, which the court appreciated, is that you can't take plea to counts that have not even been given to you. We were served some minutes to 10 a.m. yesterday a 15-count amended charge for a case coming up today, whereas the last date of adjournment was 2nd of December. So they had well over 1.5 months to have done that and served us. They didn't. So I believe that was intended to frustrate today's proceedings. In any event, that was the 6th time they are amending the charge. Each time they amend, I will file a preliminary objection. They go back to the drawing board to re-amend. So by the time we allow the plea taken tomorrow, by then we would have gotten to the bridge and then we will cross it, because certainly and definitely and absolutely we are going to file preliminary objection to these counts. Many of them are are just poor. Yeah.
Yes, and lastly, the judge made some orders. Although as his welfare and his health, though the others were not enrolled, do you feel the DSS will comply with that order?
Well, the DSS are part and parcel of the democratic organogram we have. I don't think they are aliens from another planet living on Mother Earth here. For the opting time today, the court emphasized to the DSS what they should do. In any civilized society, when you are trying an accused person, give him facilities to defend himself. How do you keep a person in solitary confinement, sleeping on a flat 6 inches bed? I mean, it's this small student's mattress with no pillow, and expect the person to live a good, healthy life? And he's complaining that he's being stabbed. We put all this in the affidavit. Solitary confinement. You are not allowed to greet any person, to exercise. And when other inmates greet you, they are immediately taken to solitary confinement or to more serious security areas because they greeted you. You are not allowed to practice your Jewish religion. You're sure that you would. All of them are seized. I mean, the judge had to make another order today. He has been appearing in court all along with the same dress. The dress is not a uniform. It's because he has not been allowed to have another dress. So when you talk about a free and fair trial, all these are what Section 36 of the Constitution is about when it says a person should be given a free hearing. Free hearing incorporates all this. Free hearing incorporates fair trial. So if, for example, everything is weighted against an accused person and in favor of the prosecutor, then where's the justice? That was the question I was asking the court. The prosecutor investigated. They are the accusers. They are the prosecutors. They are again also keeping custody of the person. Then the person is worn out gradually, psychologically, mentally depleted, psychically traumatized, physically humiliated, and debilitated. In such a case, you cannot say the person is undergoing a fair trial. So these were the points I was emphasizing to the court today, that even though you had made orders again and again and again, these orders are being flouted brazenly with impunity. So this is where we are. I believe that with today's proceedings, there will be a change of heart on the part of the DSS, because the law is that a person should stand trial. The reason they say stand trial is that you should be healthy enough to stand when you are being tried. It didn't say sit trial, or lie down trial, or prostrate trial, or be in a coma trial. Only the living can stand trial. That's what the Supreme Court said. Say only the living can stand trial. In any event, in any case, even convicted persons who are on death row are still entitled to basic fundamental rights. You can't say, for example, that because a person is on death row, then you go there and be flogging him with a cane every day, or you now tell him you can't even practice your religion, contrary to Section 38 of the Constitution. So even a convict has his basic right, not to talk of a person who is presumed innocent under our system of criminal justice, which is Anglo-Saxon based, being accusatorial, meaning your innocence is presumed, not the French model, which is inquisitorial, where your guilt is presumed. And all these have been encapsulated in Section 36 of the Constitution. So I think by the grace of God, we had a good day in the court. Yes.
Yeah, the mission and vision of One Nigeria is clearly for the unity of this country, and we cannot build a country based on ethnocentrism and or basically we cannot just build a country based on ethnic sentiments and religious sentiment. We have to get head away with ethnic sentiments, religious sentiment, and any other sentiments, and put Nigeria before us. This is what we will build a greater nation on. So today, particularly, we are here on Nnamdi Kanu's case, who is clearly who has clearly committed treason in this country, in this land, still committing treason, killing our citizens, killing our brothers and sisters in the southeast, keeping them at home against their will. Is here before the court, and we are saying that we are also encouraging the judges to speed up the trial and ensure that he is giving his judgment so that we can turn another page in the history of this nation. We are tired of coming to court every day. Let them speed the trial up because the facts are clear. The facts are clear. So let them judge, let them give him passing judgment. So this is what we have for today.
Talk to us about some of the messages in your board, in the notice board, talking about saying no to secession. And
Yes.
Is Nigeria's unity in any way under threat?
Absolutely, that is what they are training. That is what the ipob is saying. You can see recently that they just declared in some of the eastern states that nobody should sing national anthem also, which is that is treason also. So we are here to tell the whole world that the unity of Nigeria is not even at all negotiable. So nobody should threaten anybody's peace. You can see the crowd. We are all Nigerians from all corners of Nigeria. So we are here to just justify our love for our country, to redeem our pledge to our country. And we are calling on all Nigerians to redeem their pledges to their country, to come and support the Nigerian government, to come and support also the judges to ensure that the Nnamdi Kanu gets a speedy trial. Let them speed up this trial so that we can turn this page, please.
Begin with the character of the young people. Who are the young people? We are the youth. We are here today in solidarity of our great nation, Nigeria. Nigeria is in our hands. The destiny of Nigeria is in our hands. And we are Nigeria. Nigeria is us. We are here to let the government know that Nigerian youth, we are solely behind them. We are not with those, the enemies of Nigeria that want Nigeria to be divided. God has brought Nigerians together, and nobody can divide Nigeria. Nigeria is for us, and we are for Nigeria. And we are using this opportunity to call on the president of Nigeria to make sure they're speeding the judgment of Nnamdi Kanu, because we are tired. We want this to be a lesson for those people who are planning to come and scatter our unity. So we want them to speed up the judgment for Nnamdi Kanu. Am I speaking the mind of the youth? Am I speaking the mind of the youth of Nigeria?
What is your demand from the government?
My demand is that the government should free our son, Nnamdi Kanu, for us and give us our freedom. We need Biafra. The government should set us free. That is my demand.
You people came to court to support Nnamdi Kanu.
Yes.
And you are not in court, you are outside. Tell us about your
We are outside because they didn't allow us to come inside. Even when we try to, they pursue us like fowl. They are pursuing us like animals, like goats. They are pursuing us like goats. They didn't allow us to come inside.
To our greatest surprise, we saw that other people was allowed inside the court protesting against Biafrans. But we was not allowed to go inside the court to protest. Even outside the metro, they were pursuing us like a rat. It's ungentlemanly conduct. So to our greatest surprise, we don't know such thing will happen in Nigeria. If they are one Nigeria, why should they discriminate? It's unjust. So my brothers, what I'm telling you now is that if they want us to be one Nigeria and not in this condition, we are going. We believe no more. I don't belong to Nigeria again. I'm a Biafran. That's what
What is your demand? What are you demanding?
I'm demanding for sovereign state of Biafra. That's what I'm demanding for. And nothing more than that.
Biafrans. That's why we come here today. Come what may, we are Biafran. We want Biafra Republic today. And release our Martin Nnamdi unconditional release.
Guys,
Thank you so much to the Citizens Town Hall on Electra B2021. The conversation since started, though, but the first set of panelists on the program have joined me here on the stage. Let's make welcome a former INEC chairman, Professor Atahiru Jega. Thank you so much, Prof, for coming on tonight. And we have Honorable Nnamdi, a former member of the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you, Shehu, for having me.
And we have the Executive Governor of Nasarawa State, Governor Abdullahi Sule. Thank you so much, Governor, for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
We have the President of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Olumide Akpata. Thank you, President, for coming.
Thank you, Shehu. Thank you for having me.
And the National Chairman of IPAC, Alhaji Yabagi Sani. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We have contributors for this very panel. Mr. Larry Arugundade, Executive Director, International Press Center. Mr. David Anyele, Executive Director, Center for Citizens with Disabilities. And Professor Remi Sonaya, former presidential candidate of Kowa Party. She will be joining us virtually. Let's get started. And I'd like to put Your Excellency on the hot seat because some people will blame you and your colleagues for putting us at this very point, because they believe that it was the governors who opposed the bill, majorly because of the conversation or the controversies around the issue of direct or not direct primaries, which one of the things that the president vehemently says, it is undemocratic, and returned it to the National Assembly. What was the reason why you and your colleagues are not at home with that particular clause?
Thank you very much, Sean, for having me. And let me use the opportunity to clarify the point. It's like you said, putting me on the hot seat. Because when you invited me, I said, how many governors are you inviting? I said, the only governor invited. I said, okay. And then here we go, I get the first question. You know, the idea is a total misunderstanding that the governors are against direct primaries. The governors are definitely not against direct primaries. As a matter of fact, going back to the year 2019, a lot of the states chose whether to do direct or indirect within the same political party. And a good example is, I will tell you, in the state of Niger, they actually conducted direct. And so many other states that we have under APC conducted direct. So it's not that the state governors are against direct. What the state governors said when we had our meeting that I can remember, you know, the governors clearly said, all right, if they box us into a no option, I'm happy Mr. President actually mentioned exactly what we said. You know, what the governors said is that why do we want to box ourselves, you know, into just an option? In case, God forbid, there is going to be another problem. There are so many states right now that even when you say direct or indirect, they can't have any. Zamfara, because of security situation we have right now. And so many other states, whether direct or indirect. Because, you see, direct is similar to what you will call general elections. So all we said was that, why don't you leave the options? And I'm happy a lot of the people who came out earlier mentioned that the Electoral Act is more than, you know, the bill is far more than just direct or indirect. There are so many important things there. Why are we boxing ourselves to either direct or indirect? So we say in our own party, the APC, if you look at our own constitution, our constitution actually says 3 options. The very first option is consensus. If consensus is not possible, you know, you can do indirect. If that one is not, you can do direct. So we say give the political parties the opportunity. By the time the opportunities are given, you will be shocked. In the 2023 elections, a lot of the states will still do direct. So why are you saying the governors are against direct, governors are against indirect? It is totally false. The governors are just saying that provide an option. Don't box ourselves into saying only one option. In case something comes up that option is not possible, are we going to go back to the constitution, or are we going to have some constitutional issues? So that's it.
That's the front page explanation. But the inside of the book explanation, or the politics of the intrigues around it, was that some of the lawmakers were somewhat looking at the situation where the governors usually be the ones to determine who get a ticket for House of Assembly, the National Assembly seats, and they said that they wanted to work. This is the backroom conversation I'm giving to you, Governor. And they said they wanted to work against that the governors are too autocratic in the politicking, in their political parties and their state. And that's the reason why they wanted direct. They wanted the people to determine for themselves.
You see, Sean, sometimes once you have a meeting of the governors, before you even come out of the meeting, you will hear some headlines. And to be honest with you, most of the time those headlines have nothing to do with the meetings that actually had taken place. But I think it's very unfortunate, especially and social media has become factual these days. The moment anybody just throws out something in the social media, it is assumed that that is it. I live very close to Abuja. In fact, just 3 hours from life here I get here. I didn't even know there was a bill passed until the governors called and said that we were going to have a meeting. And when we came to that meeting of the APC governors, the subject was brought that there is the issue. What do we do? And I think the discussions were, why are they pushing us into, just one option? Why are we not having options? Why are we not having things around and say this? We just finished our congresses in APC. The very first one that we had, there were no ESCO, there were no delegates. So we did direct. We just finished that right now. So who says any governor is afraid of direct or indirect? I think that is a very, very wrong, and that's one of the reasons why I said, well, it's an opportunity for us to come and explain. There are a lot of governors today who will prefer direct. Once you take the elections to their state, they want direct. Because they strongly believe they are more popular, with their people than even with their party. There are some state governors that are not in good terms with even the party leaders in the state. And those kind of governors will prefer direct.
So tickets are not usually a witch hunt tool against opponent within the party, because we've seen this happen.
No, I think that's just an assumption. A lot of people.
Governor, I've had conversations around it. So yeah. It's no longer an assumption. It is the fact. The lawmakers had come on my program to say, this is the situation of things, and they want a situation where the governors are no longer the ones determining things all by themselves.
Let me give you an example with Nasarawa State, because Nasarawa made a statement in 2011. In 2011, a party called the CPC came in with Muhammadu Buhari wanting to be president. When it came, Nasarawa State, we didn't even know anything called CPC. And Muhammadu Buhari had never won election in Nasarawa State during the ANPP days. But because there was arm twisting of the governor was in good terms with the party. And so Tanko Al-Makura had no option going for, an indirect that was going to happen. So Tanko Al-Makura opted with the people and now took over CPC and started trading. And the people told him, go ahead. At the end of the day, Nasarawa State was the only CPC state in the entire federation. Not even Katsina State, the hometown of the president, voted CPC. We were the only CPC. Because the people decided that we want our governor, not the party, not delegates, nobody. And at the end of the day, the people now decided with the governor against what happened in PDP. So I think the question, that's why I tell you sometimes, it's just perception and assumption that people believe that if the governor does this is that. If the governor does this is it. It's just, and most people are not actually politically involved. And as a result of that, they believe what they hear from the same politicians. Today in Nasarawa, I don't really care whether direct, indirect, consensus, whichever one. Let it come. Right. We're here.
Honorable Okeje, have you been a victim of this situation? I mean, I'm very sure that you've heard the conversation. This is not the only part of it, but it was the problem that one of the problems that didn't allow the bill to sail through. Have you ever been a victim of someone using ticket as a witch hunt?
Sean, those are very, very strong words, using ticket as a witch hunt. But what I will say is that the conversations around this clause in the bill, a lot of my colleagues have actually said that what they were trying to do was give more power to more people, as against the indirect primaries, which was proposed. Now, for them, and a lot of my colleagues speak to the high attrition rate. Every political cycle, you find out that there is a lot of, there's a lot of conversations about the tickets, and there's a lot of people start to pander to the leadership of the political parties because their tickets are imperiled by the perceived hijacking of the political structure, systems, and institutions by the governors. So yes, there is that impression by a lot of people. But let me say that, again, I do not believe that the lack of choice in the political parties, within the political parties, would actually engender better elections or better selection processes. I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I said to them that even if we were to have direct primaries, for instance, and people gathered together, this bill does not speak to one of the most important things, in my opinion, which is election violence. And if people came together and someone shot in the air, and it was a group of people were going to run away, and then the same institutions that we're worried about will still hijack it and throw up the person that they require. So for me, I believe that it is conjecture in some places, but to some extent it is also real, that people constantly have to pander to the structures, systems, and institutions of democracy in order to get the political parties. And sometimes the people who are the bearers of the tickets do not necessarily reflect the choice of the popular choice. So yes, sometimes it is taken over, yes.
I just wanted you to confirm to the governor that this exists.
No, I said that conversations like this exist.
All right, Prof, but you spearheaded more than 2 election cycles somehow in this country. And if you look at things, we wonder whether or not we can go into the next election cycle with the present law that we have. What do you think is the effect, the major effect of the delay in signing this bill?
Well, thank you very much, Sean. I think that this country will be better off if we go into the next election with a new electoral law which would enhance the integrity of the preparations and conduct of elections. The bill contains quite a lot of good things that can enhance the integrity of the electoral process. A good legal framework helps to have elections with integrity. And electoral integrity actually enhances democratic consolidation and the preparation and conduct of elections democratically. So really, since 2010, we have not had substantive improvements in the electoral legal framework until now. And clearly, the bill contains quite a lot of substantive improvements. So we must do everything possible to ensure that we go into the next election with a new bill. But I think what is most important also is that we must ensure that this bill becomes law as soon as is possible in order not to hamstring INEC's preparations for the conduct of the 2023 election. So even governorship elections that would precede the 2023 elections. So it's very, very important that really we have a new legal framework for the preparations and conduct of the 2023 elections, because it will improve the integrity of the preparations and conduct of elections. Now, on this issue of direct, indirect primaries, I think clearly the electoral process under normal circumstances would have better integrity if you do direct primaries appropriately. Because I think it's important to emphasize that, because the discussions we've been having, it's very passionate discussion, people are taking position, and you are right. Members of the National Assembly perceive, and some of them know for a fact, that governors, maybe not in Nasarawa, but other governors manipulate the indirect primaries. And they think that if they move into direct primaries, they would be able to free themselves from that kind of manipulation. And they think that that will expand opportunities for citizens' participation. But we need to interrogate these things quite properly. You know, I would want to see a situation in Nigeria where we can have direct primaries and where we can do it well. As we speak now, Sheun, which of the major political parties has a clear register of members that they can use for direct primaries? Because if you are doing direct primaries, you need to have a register of people who have registered properly, who can come out, whom when INEC goes to monitor the elections, will know that the people who come out to vote are actually registered members of these political parties. You know, so we should be careful about trying to avoid or solve one problem and run into another problem. So to my mind, any governor that manipulates indirect primaries under the present conditions will also have the capacity to manipulate direct primaries. Yeah. Because the register of voters is not there, and it's key. To do direct primaries, you must ensure that every party has a register of voters that is credible, that citizens, organizations that are monitoring the elections can verify that the people who are coming out to vote are actually registered members of these parties. And the INEC itself, that has a legal responsibility to monitor, can ensure. So to my mind, really, until you do that, you will really just be moving without solving any problem. So my suggestion, what is key, what is a priority now, is give INEC the law to begin preparations for 2023 elections. And the only way to do it, the simplest way to do it, is not to override Mr. President. Drop that issue of democratic direct primaries until you can ensure that parties really can actually do direct primaries when you want to do it. So that you can have a law that can be assented and quickly INEC will prepare for the 2023 general election. Let me tell you something that many Nigerians probably have not paid attention to. INEC made 36 specific recommendations to the National Assembly for the improvement of the legal framework, which would be better than the 2010 Electoral Act as amended. Out of these, the National Assembly adopted, without any correction, 25. And then it adopted 5 with some adjustments, so you can say partial adoption. So 31 out of the recommendations that INEC has made, which they believe will improve the credibility of the conduct of elections, are actually now contained in this bill. But the challenge is what the National Assembly itself had introduced. They introduced things, I will argue, sometimes perhaps without real serious contemplation, thinking that it will solve a problem that some of them may have with some of the governors. But it will not solve that problem. The challenge is, how do you ensure that parties are properly organized, they have properly registered members, and when it comes to election of candidates for the parties to be fielded for elections, you use the proper register of voters. In fact, how do governors manipulate the indirect primaries? It's through the control of the delegate list. Because the delegate list is more or less like the register that you use for the indirect primaries. So they will do the same thing and they will manipulate it. So what we need, we already have some fundamental elements that can improve the integrity of the elections. Let this be passed immediately. Drop this issue of direct primaries. Think more seriously about it. It is good. It should be done. But if we proceed to do it the way we are trying to do it now, we are likely to create more problems than we will solve.
Alaji Yabagisani, for the political parties in IPAC, were you surprised when the president refused assent?
Not at all, because what baffles us is the fact that the National Assembly did not engage in what all legislative bodies do, which is consultation, engagement with stakeholders before you pass a law. In this particular case, such an important bill was discussed, passed, without contacting the political parties to know how do we feel, how is it going to work. We are the ones to implement the law at the end of the day. So for somebody who is altruistic, you would have said, okay, let me ask even the managers, people who are going to implement this law, after we are passed.
So you blame the National Assembly?
No, I blame them, and I think it's just a dummy sold to Nigerians for their own selfish interest, if truth must be told. Otherwise, this is not the first time we are trying direct primaries. We know it's a failure in all cases where it was tried. My party in particular, as we speak today, we are still in court because we tried in 2019 to introduce direct primaries in one of the states. Today, we are still in court, with litigation that came out, which you cannot put your hands around, the issues themselves. So I think in National Assembly, these are people that are very familiar with these issues. So for Mr. President to come out, and then this again is coming from the party that controls both the executive and the legislative arm of the government. So why should we have this conversation? That's why some people are suspecting even the discussions itself, that is it not a red herring, that probably the National Assembly is up to something that they have not told us, or the executive is up to something they have not told us. Because if you remember, Sean, the issue of direct transmission of results was like something that Nigerians had to beg and then demonstrate in some cases that we need this direct transmission of result electronically from the polling points. So the point is this: why do they bring in something that has no relevance to the whole discussions? So the irreducible minimum is that the National Assembly must, because Nigerians say they want the bill to be passed into law. I'm talking about the electoral bill which was sent to Mr. President, minus the dummy that they put in it to give us some conversation we're having today. It has no meaning, it has no relevance. Except, idealistic, if you are idealizing, you can say do direct primaries, because you can say, well, after all, democracy says, government of the people, by the people, for the people. So it makes sense to say, okay, from the process, engage the people. But how? Which country is doing direct primary today? Not even America, that you can say have tried this thing over 200 years. They are still having problems with even the system. It's delegate system. Go to every country that you can say, is it Asia, even African countries or Europe? Where is it practiced in the first instance? So why put us into these unnecessary discussions that have no meaning, no bearing with what we are talking about? What we are talking about is how do we improve the process of electioneering in this country? And again, another issue that I think we should also address, like Madam here says, is violence, which in most cases are introduced by the people that have won.
By the politicians.
Not politicians, by government, really. Because politicians do you have people who shoot in the air? Do we have the army? No.
But we hear that some of you politicians arm thugs. during elections.
Well, I mean,
because where do the ammunitions come during elections?
Some politicians, and if you trace their origin, you find them in the politicians that I'm talking about. I won't mention any names here or any party here. But the point, and again, another issue that I don't know why it's not being discussed in this bill, in the law, is the issue of the obscene use of money during elections, before elections, during elections, after elections. Why is that nobody has been tried in this country? And everybody in the world knows that we use money to the extent that you think the whole thing is about what you go to a Dumata market to buy. You have to carry money. In Ghana must go.
Cash and carry politics.
Exactly, politics. So I don't know why we did not, in this bill, address that issue, how to, ensure that the agencies, you have EFCC, you have ICPC, you have all sorts of agencies. Why is it that no one person, has been taken in front of the court to say you use money? And we know that the money is used obscenely to distort, the people's mandate. So I think for us,
but I guess with electronic transmission of results, even when you have the money, I think one of the agitation is that if these laws are passed, even when you have the money will fail.
No, it won't fail.
No.
This situation
will still work.
It will work much more than before, because it's like garbage in, garbage out. What we are saying, we're not talking about electronic voting. We're talking about electronic transmission of all the.
Because the reason why I said so is that we saw election in Ondo, we saw it in Edo, where a lot of people will say that there was a seemingly likeness of what happened at the polling unit and the outcome of the election. So people say money is already failing some politicians. Or you oppose that?
The point I'm making is that what we are talking about is transmission of results. Yeah. The question is, politicians, like you said, very smart. Find a way, with time, how to even make it more completely, out of tune with what people really did at the polling booths. Yes, in terms of how people are circumvented by way of inducing them with money. But I think if we have to be serious, and we must be serious as a country, because this country is too big, to be toyed with, in terms of all the things that we have as a people. Somebody here mentioned that the other countries look up to us for leadership, and if we go on like this, diverting attention from the real things and then giving us things that everybody knows has no meaning with what we're talking about. I mean, please, we must be.
All right. Let me bring
serious.
Let me bring in the president of the NBA. This is basically about the law, and the NBA, I would say, is like the conscience of the judiciary system in this country. Are you worried about how things have panned out since the president declined assent and these conversations have gone on? The legal window that we have left for us. What is your biggest concern should these not sail through?
Thank you, Shehu. Am I worried? I'm petrified. I'm so disappointed the way things have panned out. Everything about that bill, or at least most of it, spells progress. Most of the provisions in the bill, to my mind, are pro-people, pro-the people. I see those provisions as incremental steps being taken to correct the process that has been adjudged by all to be deficient. We cannot get it right all at once. And so you can forgive people for thinking for a second that our government is anti-people. You can forgive them if they come to that conclusion. Everything rises and falls on leadership. Leadership at the executive arm, leadership at in the legislature. We have a bill that has, as we have heard today, so many innovations that would advance the cause of this nation and her people, including ensuring that INEC gets funding 1 year before the elections, including that people living with disability are included in the process, including that you must submit the names of your nominees 180 days. These are all provisions that are responding to issues that have been highlighted in the process that are in need of fixing. And then Mr. President has that bill on his table for quite a bit. And then last minute, almost last minute, because as we have heard today, we are running out of time. You can't foist a new law on a process and expect that process to work. There must be time. As Professor Jega has said, you can't allow for the process to be hamstrung by a new legislation or a new piece of legislation. So Mr. President has pointed out this issue of direct or indirect primaries and has decided that on the basis of that, he is sending it back to the National Assembly. I think, as the speaker before me has mentioned, that we can be forgiven when we conclude that all of this is a smokescreen of some sort, and that there is that what we have is a spanner being thrown in the works to keep us in the doldrums, so that we'll stay with the present dispensation, because this is something that could easily have been fixed. Mr. President is of the same party as those who control the National Assembly. This is something that could have been fixed. I don't want to go into the legalese. This is something, if really our leaders are interested in progress for the people and for the nation, and are not fixated on political issues or issues that have to do with their own political fortunes, this issue should have been fixed. This bill, everything about it spells progress for the Nigerian state. Now, if there's a problem with direct and indirect primaries, I agree totally with Professor Jega that we probably need to think carefully about implementing that particular aspect because we may not be ready. But I think these are housekeeping issues that could have been sorted out by those who are at the helm of affairs in both arms of government. For us to get to this point where we are almost January of 2022 is almost over, and we're still talking about this. And Shehu, you ask me if I'm worried. My God, I'm so saddened by it, because everything tells me that this is not going to work. Everything tells me that the booby trap that has been set is actually going to capture all of us, and then we'll be back to square zero, and then we're going to go into another set of elections. And I think it was one of the speakers before us who said that we'll do the same thing, expecting different results. So we are in a bit of a pickle. We have a problem before us, and our leaders need to really give this thing a rethink. There is a small window, a small opportunity. I think the issue of direct and indirect primaries, since the president has thrown a challenge in his interview with you, has said to us that if that provision is removed, he will assent to the bill. I recommend to the members of the National Assembly, let us take him at his word, take out that provision. You understand? We can deal with that further down the road. Like I said, these are incremental steps. Take out those provisions. There's too much in that bill for the baby and the bath water to be thrown away.
I'd like to get some views outside of his circle, on the outer circle. I'd like to bring in Larry Arugundade, the Executive Director of the International Press Center, just in about a minute or so, if you can weigh in, bring in your contribution now. Mr. Arugundade.
Okay, thank you very much, Sheung. I'm here. Well, I think you started this conversation by talking about the question of time. Time is central to the discourse that we're having. And in looking at this, the blame goes both ways. First is the fact that it took quite a long time for the president to get back to the National Assembly about his objections to aspects of this important bill. It took almost a month. We grant the right of the president to make consultations with different segments of the society, but that should also have been done with the understanding that we need to have this law so that we can at least comply with frameworks that govern elections in our environment. The ECOWAS Protocol on Elections, the African Charter on Democracy and Governance, all talk about the fact that anything about electoral law should be concluded a year to the elections. So I think that the executive has part of the blame. But now that it has gone back to the National Assembly, I do agree with everybody that we need to do the needful. Otherwise, it will just be like that, old songs that says, how many times shall the head turn for the eyes to see? How many times shall we pass bills for us to have credible elections in this country? And now that we have an Electoral Act Amendment bill that in a substantial sense captures the aspirations of the people, the National Assembly should do the needful. But let me also sound this warning, Sheung, that it's not only on the question of dropping the red primaries or not dropping it, that the president might not assent to this bill. And part of the concern from those of us from the civil society, especially the EU-SDGM partners, is that there are so many fundamental cross-referencing errors in the bill, which in itself speaks volumes about the seriousness by which our legislators take the issue of lawmaking in this country. We all talk about the whole question of how well they are paid, their allowances, and the rest of them. And one would expect that at this stage they should be able to pass a bill where these errors will not constitute obstacle. Cynthia mentioned this in the earlier part of the conversation that in 2018, August 2018, the president declined assent to that bill because of those errors. And we are worried that if those errors are not corrected, it might be a reason for the president not to assent to the bill. And some of them are quite important. There is a clause there, for example, if you look at 14.2, that talks about election petition amendments. And in that particular bill, that particular clause, they are relying on a non-existent provision, talking about section 134 of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which does not exist, whereas what they had in mind is section 285 of the Constitution. There is a clause where you just have mere repetition. Clauses 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 were essentially repeating the same things. So we have a precedent where the president didn't assent to an electoral bill because of those errors.
All right.
So the National Assembly, so when this bill goes back, so why we're now concerned about time is the fact that, consensus dropped the red primaries, but they also have to take care of all this, look at it very carefully, so that by the time it gets back to the president, the needful will be done. There are many institutions in this country, Sheon, outside the political organizations, that have oversight functions in elections. The media, my constituency, for example, Section 22 says we should monitor governance and hold government accountable to the people. We need to hold the political parties accountable to the electoral law. We need to hold INEC itself accountable. And if we do not have a credible law, it would actually undermine the capacity of the media to set a proper agenda for our electoral process. Thank you.
Let me bring in Professor Remi Sonaya. She's joining us virtually, a former presidential candidate of Kowa Party. Let me take your contribution, Prof, quickly. Former presidential candidate of Kowa Party.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes. Thank you. I am quite concerned about the deficit of trust that seems to be evident in some of the expressions that we have heard on this program this evening. We have heard words being used by people on the platform who are really concerned. Words like red herring, like booby trap, smoke screen, spanner in the works. I think that we are at a very, very critical moment in terms of.
Oh dear. Just at the moment when we're enjoying our contribution. Let me bring in Mr. David Anyele, Executive Director, Center for
Is the fact that
we seem to be having a problem with the connection. All right, I guess okay. If you can hear Prof.
I cannot hear you.
Okay, go ahead. There was some kind of distortion in your connection earlier.
I should go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Okay. What I am trying to say is that we should probably look beyond the letter at this point and look at the spirit of the conduct of the elections themselves. The various stakeholders, it seems as if the people do not think that there is a real interest in improving the integrity of elections in Nigeria. And I think that I would like, to join in this call for asking that the direct primaries issue be removed. Okay, if that's the problem, let us remove it and let us see whether the president will go ahead and actually assent to this bill so that it becomes law. And let that be done quickly, because as it has been repeated, there is a lot more to this bill than direct primaries. And we are doing ourselves a huge disservice if we focus entirely on the direct primaries and forget all the other benefits, like the NBA president has outlined them. So I would very much like us to think in terms of the spirit. Is there a real desire to ensure that we have credible elections in Nigeria?
Let me bring in.
It seems as if, like I said, there's a deficit of trust. People are not really sure that the executive and the legislature are really interested in doing this. So they have to prove that they are.
All right.
They have to prove that they are.
Thank you so much, Prof. Let me bring
and
in
that is
Mr.
what
David
we're looking for at this time.
the Executive Director, Center for Citizens with Disabilities, for his own contribution. It's supposed to be a 1 to 2 minute contribution. Please, you can go ahead, Mr. Anyele.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've been, paying key attention to the conversations, and one of the key issues that interest me in this new draft bill or the bill is the issue of overvoting. Clause 51 provides that where there is overvoting vis-a-vis number of voters that were accredited, that that's what will be used to calculate the winner of such elections. If such provisions is adhered to, what that means is that issues around trust, issues around acceptance, issues that leads to struggle for winning or the winning of elections will clearly minimized. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is a time people with disabilities in Nigeria are clamoring for the passage of this bill, it is now. The reason is simple. Throughout the 36 states of the Federation, an average person with disability is committed not just to vote, but also to participate as a candidate. It is only when we have a credible, generally accepted electoral framework that ensures that their confidence and trust in the electoral process is guaranteed that will trigger them to participate. Most of the things that we are all asking for, especially the marginalized populations, are all bordered around governance. About 3 years ago, 17th of January 2019, President Muhammadu Buhari signed into an act, the Discrimination Against Person with Disability Provision Act. That act is in line with some of the provisions that the Electoral Act has provided. Therefore, we are asking that Mr. President should do us a favor, as he did on the 17th of January 2019, by signing this bill when the National Assembly returned it back to them, so as to guarantee Nigerians that Nigeria belongs to them, that their views count, that Nigeria, the future, is possible for all of us. Thank you so much.
Let me bring the conversation back to the stage. I know, Governor, I know you have an appointment just in a few minutes. You are very close to power. I'm talking about power at the center, meaning that your party holds sway at the center. And a lot of conversation have gone around what your party that has the control and the executive and in the legislature can do. It does look to me tonight that this is not a minority argument. It is a popularity. It has a popularity amongst the Nigerian population. And what do you think your party should be considering? This is a large clamor, loud clamor from Nigerians. Are you listening to it? Are you going to yield to it?
Of course, I'm listening to it, Asheun. And that's why I'm here. And I'm happy that I came and listened to all these highly respected individuals, who have been participants, have been part of it. It's different from where you are seeing it from outside than when you are right in it. Because, like, if you listen to Professor Jega, he even mentioned to you why direct primaries will be impossible now. He brought about the register. Even though our party, Professor, just finished our registration exercise, with the exception of maybe 2 states or so, which we have done. And then earlier on, our party, when it was registered, we had like 100 people pay every award, that were registered. So anyway, that is aside. But you see, and then I also listened to our leader of IPAC, where he mentioned challenging people to even go back and see which country is actually doing what we are trying to do, just because some governors are untwisting some people at this. And I listened to everybody, including the MBA president as well as my sister, and it looked like everybody is saying, if the issue is just about direct or indirect, why are we getting ourselves there? And that was the only subject the governors had. So I'm going back again to the governors, the one you mentioned. The governors are very happy with whatever contributions that have been made. A lot of contributions were made by INEC into this bill. A lot of contributions are made by several other organizations. I'm seeing Rafsanjani also here, with the contributions that they have made. IPAC made, and everybody. At the end of the day, those who collected those contributions and put it into a bill and sent it to the president remain politicians. Because sometimes people are saying that why politicians are anti-people. It's the same politicians that put it together at the National Assembly and send it to Mr. President and say, this is what the people want. And Mr. President, now from what I heard when you were actually interviewing him, he said, I have no problem whatsoever. Like the president of MBA said, I have no problem with all the good things that are in this particular bill. No problem whatsoever. They are for the people, they are this. The only one I have a problem with is this. And it looks, everybody is saying, if that is the only problem, set it aside. I think this town hall meeting is over. Because everybody is saying the same thing that the governor said from the beginning. Just set it aside.
And you know why a lot of people are worried also?
Yeah.
It's because the president has promised also that he will leave a legacy of good election. That's one of the promise. You think he will keep to it?
And this is one president that can do that. I have absolutely no doubt in it, because you mentioned about I'm a governor and I'm close to that. I won't tell you that I'm one of the closest people to Mr. President, but the time I have sat with this president, I have seen the genuine frankness in the way he talks and what he says. I can't say Mr. President is perfect. I can't say Mr. President has everybody around him, the best of people. I can't say that. But as a person and what he says, this is one person that he will tell you, this is what I want to do, and he will do it. This, I believe, about Mr. President.
So, you've been in the National Assembly.
Yes.
Usually when we have this kind of thing, go back to the National Assembly. How easy? Because somewhat is an ego issue. And we've seen this with the arms of government. So when the executive had returned this bill to the National Assembly, what kind of reaction should we be expecting?
I think that the major job of members of the National Assembly to collate the aggregate opinion of a critical mass of the Nigerian people. As we have sat down here, His Excellency has just said it, that there's almost a unanimous clamor for this bill to be passed. This evening has highlighted so many other things that a lot of people probably were not aware of. So the National Assembly is duty-bound to listen to the clamor of the Nigerian people. Our egos bruised, probably, but I even listened to the Speaker of the House, Speaker Agbajabiamila, and he said that at some commissioning some days ago, that if that was the only problem, that he was going to take it back to the National Assembly. Now, from the way he sounded, you can see that he's not building walls around himself. But let me make the point that every National Assembly wants to leave a legacy. Every executive wants to leave a legacy. And I believe that straight out of the Democrats' playbook, is to leave a legacy. And if this is the one bill, polarizing bill, that has brought Nigerians together, clamoring for the one thing, and in their oversight is also a constitutional requirement that you oversight laws, appropriations, and policies. Now, if the National Assembly in its oversight has seen that there's certain lacuna in the previous Electoral Act that have made Nigerians suspicious of the electoral processes, then the National Assembly will, as a matter of urgency, do what it has to do. Because already as it is, like I said earlier on, it is the job of the National Assembly to collate the aggregate opinion of a critical mass of the Nigerian people and do it. The National Assembly must project that which the Nigerian people want. In this room, we have everybody. We have civil societies, we have the NLC, we have the clergy, we have everybody saying the same thing. And all we're saying is that the Nigerian electoral processes have not delivered on the kind of elections that Nigerians want. Already as it is in Nigeria, and we have seen that liberal democracy is imperiled around the world. We've seen it even in the United States, that is the bastion of democracy. We have actually seen them hold a summit where they're having conversations about democracy. Nigeria as well plays that role in the sub-region. Every time there's a problem on an infraction in democracy, Nigeria is called to be front, right, and center in having those conversations and driving those conversations. So the National Assembly owes it. It is the right thing to do. It is the patriotic thing to do, and it helps Nigeria continue to maintain her position as a leader in the sub-region. Because if we don't do that which we must do, then can you imagine Nigeria selling to other countries the beauty of a democracy that we do not have? Therefore, I believe that the National Assembly will do what they must do, which is carry the voices of the Nigerian people and of the utmost importance, and at the shortest possible time, go through that, not only expunging that, but also looking at the inelegance in the drafting that makes it an embarrassing piece of legislation. I think that the National Assembly will do that in the shortest possible time.
We will round up this session. I have one or two questions from the floor. It's a town hall meeting, so it's supposed to be an all-encompassing conversation. Obina and Adara, please stand by. But before we get them ready, Prof, you've organized elections in Nigeria. How difficult is it from what you're saying now, you're watching from the outside now, the job of the man who succeeded you, how difficult do you think it is because of this whole drama?
Well, conducting elections in a country like Nigeria is certainly not an easy thing. It's a very difficult thing, but it's doable. And I think both the chairman and the Electoral Commission and the other commissioners themselves can be helped a lot with a good legal framework, because everything is supposed to be done in accordance with the law. And as I have said earlier on, since 2010, we have not had substantive, remarkable improvements in the electoral legal framework. Now we seem to be on that trajectory. But again, we are wasting time. So you mentioned issue of ego. I think the National Assembly should not be thinking about ego. This is about the nation and improving the integrity of elections in our country. To my mind, when they resume, in a matter of maximum 10 days, they can address all these issues that have been mentioned now whether the issue of cross-referencing and editing, as well as simply dropping the issue of direct primaries. You know, we are not saying drop it because it is not good or because we do not accept that there are problems with the way in which indirect primaries are currently conducted. But we are saying that, look, you cannot throw the baby with the bathwater. You know, don't go ahead and say, out of ego, as you said, that we must have it and therefore we are overriding Mr. President, because there are legitimate concerns and problems if you go ahead to implement it. You know, so drop it. Let's think more carefully, prepare adequately in future. But these good things that are already in this bill should be signed into law immediately so that INEC can now begin to prepare guidelines and issue what needs to be done so that they can start serious work with the 2023 general elections.
All right. Your Excellency, I would like to excuse you because I know that you made a commitment that you're going to be here, albeit you had a prior engagement, but I must sincerely thank you for coming. Please, can we put our hands together for the Executive Governor of Nasarawa State? Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Let me quickly get the questioning from Obina and Adaura, and I'll get the reaction from the stage here. Obina, they're contributing from the floor. Obina and Adaura, quickly.
All right. Thank you. My name is Obino Sisiogu, Executive Director of Advocacy for Civic Engagement Center. Well, Nigerians do not trust the electoral process, and that is the fact. And this is backed up by evidence when you look at the trajectory of voter turnout since 2003. It's been on a steady decline. 2015, it was 43%. 2019, it was 34%. And due to the work that we do as an organization, we're in the streets, we interact with the people, we're trying to get them registered to vote. And they continue to express their distrust of the process. And one thing is clear. There's a general consensus among a lot of Nigerians that the electoral bill, you know, is timely, and it is clear to everybody that it will go a long way to show up the confidence of Nigerians. One of the common denominators in the conversation that we've had here today is that, one, direct and indirect primaries, it's something that can be stepped down for the moment. And then the second consensus that we seem to have here today, is the sense of urgency and the fact that all hands need to be on deck to ensure that this bill is passed. And my question will go to the distinguished speakers here today. First of all, of course, to the NBA president, because he represents my constituency as a lawyer, and of course to the legislator as well here. What specific things can you commit to do based on the resources you have, the influence that you have as the head of the Nigerian Bar Association and the former legislator who, of course, has a relationship in the House of Representatives? What specific things or commitment can you make here today that you can do to, you know, apply pressure on the House of Representatives to pass the electoral bill?
Thank you, Obina. Let's make the interventions very quick and sharp. Adaura Nyekere, please, you have the floor.
All right, my name is Adaura Nyekere. I'm a broadcast journalist and also the head for Women Affairs and Gender for African Union Cluster Committee, Nigeria. I once came across an article that said interrogating the Ogbanje Abiku spirit of the Electoral Amendment Bill. And when I read it, it was very emphatic and very directly speaking to the issues. You're talking about a document that has 5 times been sent back to the sender. And now we're looking at the timeliness of this bill. I want to ask, amongst other things, this is very important to me because first, as a Nigerian woman, I'm also looking at the cost of election, money politics in election, which is what Section 88 of the bill also looked at. And in the new version of the spending limit proposed in the section, it now seems to say that candidates seeking presidential election are allowed to increase their cash haul from 1 billion to 15 billion. Those who are looking at governorship are allowed to increase it from 1 billion to 5 billion. Senate 1.5 billion from 40 million. House of Rep now can take that from 30 million to 500 million, and State Assembly from 10 million to 50 million. Now, if we're looking at inclusion of young people in election and the voices of women's participation, how critical is it to also look at ending money politics in this conversation? And I put this because I know that Honorable Nnamdi is sitting down there, and she also represents the voice of women. Is it important to also look at this as a problem and begin to also take that detail and take it back to the National Assembly? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adara. Thank you for those interventions. And I think it's a good point for us. Let me allow Alaji Abaji Sani to intervene. Money politics, and of course, I'll allow the NBA president and Honorable Keje to respond to those interventions also.
Thank you, Shaun. I think but one thing here. I wouldn't like ourselves to play into the suspected, scheme, whether it's true or not, by, trying to take a fine comb through the whole thing and say, this, must dot this I and cross this T and all these things, And then again, we get ourselves bogged down with such details. I think, the act of legislation, like we all know, is not a destination. It's a journey. I remember the PIA bill, that is the Petroleum Industry Act, was passed with some areas that are not really engaged the way it should be. But in spite of that, the bill was passed, and today you have agencies that have been created based on the passage of that bill, and amendments immediately. I think within the 24 hours or so, the executive again was preparing an amendment to those bills. So I would like us to be careful not to get ourselves into another problem where the National Assembly will say, because we have to do this, we have to do that, we are highlighting these things, so we must be careful not to get ourselves entangled in some of these fine details that we're talking about. I'm not saying they are not important, but as a nation, we can go on. I mean, it's not as bad as where we're coming from, anyway, what we have today. So that's one thing, caution I want to, sound, a word of caution. Then money politics, like I said earlier, is something that we must address, and address it in a manner that will allow, the critical mass of Nigerians, especially the youth, to get involved in party politics. We, the political parties, we are preaching to the Nigerians that we want youth, we want women to come in. Then if we now say that you must have this amount of money, before you come in, I don't think that's what the bill says. The bill says that you can spend as much as that amount of money. It doesn't say that you must pay, how much billions?
We're talking about the limit.
Yes,
not
the limit.
obscene to have that kind of money.
It is, but the point I'm making is that we shouldn't box ourselves into a situation where we now play the hands of those, like some of us are saying today.
People who do not really have the money.
Yes.
And we are given a spending limit.
Yes.
It's like you don't have money, and you're giving yourself a terrible, an obscene budget or limit, spending limit. Is it not? Is it right? Is it morally right?
It's not right.
That's the question.
The point I'm making is that it doesn't say you must have that amount of money before you can participate.
But should we extend that limit?
We shouldn't.
That's the question.
We shouldn't. But it shouldn't be an issue here now. Let's go on, please. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Let me bring the NBA president. What are your thoughts?
On what?
Money politics, one, the spending limit, but again, the question of where we need to go from here is asking for
Obina, yes,
asking for how your intervention will help the process.
Yeah, I wanted to address Obina's direct question to me first, which is what, as NBA president, what I will do. So on the, let me backtrack and say I agree with His Excellency the Governor, now who has now left us, that this meeting is actually over, right? And I think we've narrowed down the issues. And on the 22nd of December, I issued a statement where, amongst other things, I mentioned that the ball is right now in the court of the National Assembly. And the options open to them are actually two. Deal with the direct primary issue and represent the bill to Mr. President, or take the historic step and override his veto. So what would we as the NBA do? I think we're fortunate to have amongst our membership quite a number of members of the National Assembly. Quite a number of them are lawyers. I think beyond the statements that we have issued, beyond appearing in events like this and articulating the points, it behooves on us to go to those members of the National Assembly and let them understand that history beckons, right? We are at a point where we will need to do that which is most important for our country, even if personally we suffer, even if egos are bruised, even if we don't quite agree. And so that is the step, the very practical step that I intend to take on behalf of the NBA, to go to the lawyers in the National Assembly and to make sure that they and we don't have time. So that much we will need to do right now. And if I may just quickly refer to the point that Professor Shonaya raised, which is the issue of trust deficit. It is there. Obina mentioned that the people don't trust the process, and there's a huge trust deficit. Our leaders in the executive and in the legislature should not increase the deficit. They should do more to get the people to trust. Otherwise, conspiracy theories will continue to abound, and we will continue to second guess their motives as to why we are having this conversation, as you have said previously, that is actually needless. So we're at this point now. If all it would take is to get rid of not get rid of it, step it down, as Obina rightly said, direct primary issue. So let's move on quickly. And so in terms of practical steps, that's what I would say.
So the official position of the NBA is what you have told us now.
The official position of the NBA, speaking through the president, is that we will go to the National Assembly and encourage particularly our members to do the right thing. I have said it before here and I repeat it. If it will take stepping down the issue of direct primaries, do it. And go to Mr. President, go back with the bill. And I am very much in support of those who have mentioned talked about the inelegance of the drafting. I think it's a bit disappointing. So it's an opportunity for our legislature representatives to deal with that. We present the bill, and we can deal with the issue of direct primaries further down the road. Right. That is the position.
We need to wrap up this panel now. I'd like to get your final thoughts quickly on some of the interventions made.
She had spoken about the ambigu going back and forth on the bills, and also about the fee bill, the money politics. But let me make the point that I think the figures are obscene, that in the same way that a lot of consideration has been made for people living with disability, in Nigeria, poverty wears a woman's face. And so we can't, on the one hand, encourage women to come into politics, into the political space, and make it more inclusive, and then have limits or even bottom levels that are way outside of the financial reach of the Nigerian woman. I think that that clause does not really take into consideration, into cognizance, the fact that the Nigerian woman is a minority in Nigeria economically, and she's economically disempowered, especially in post-COVID. Now, as far as I'm concerned as well, I believe that the backing and forthing of the bill, this is a bill that has been denied accent 4 times. But let me make the point, and I want to give the president the benefit of the doubt, that this is the first time that categorically the president has spoken twice. One at the Democratic Summit with the United States president, where he said that he was going to leave legacy one, and that he was also going to leave frameworks that were going to deepen and strengthen democracy. Second of all, he said it to you, Shehu, that if that was removed, that if that contentious clause was removed from the bill, that he would assent. He didn't say, I may assent. He said, I will assent. And he has also said, I do not want to fail. I don't want to be a failure. I also believe that the first page in a Democrat's book is to live democracy better than you met it. So I believe that if we take all this into account, I believe that Mr. President has the responsibility to himself, to his legacy, and to Nigerians to append to that bill because he had said that he will.
All right, I've been told that we have just about 30 or 40 seconds left on this panel. I'll give Prof that opportunity to.
Frankly, I'm glad that the issue has been raised about this extending of the spending limit. And I think that we were so concerned and debating and putting pressure on the issue of electronic transmission of results and the other issues that we tended to not pay attention to that issue. But it's a very, very important issue. You know, where is a presidential candidate going to get 15 billion naira to run?
Billion?
Yes. Or a governor to get 5 billion, or a senator, you know. So if unless you are a Dangote or an Otedola, where you can use your own money, you know. So what they are doing is they are turning our democracy into plutocracy. You know, government of the rich, for the rich, and by the rich. So it's a very, very serious problem. So all these contradictions, which our sister here has pointed out, really it's it. On the one hand, you say you are including women and people with disability. On the other hand, you are saying you have to have a lot of money to be able to contest for a particular office. No, it's a terrible contradiction. And frankly, if people are serious, we've been talking a lot about reducing the influence of money in politics. But what they are doing through legislation is to actually make it more difficult for those who do not have money to be able to contest for office. So left to me, this may be another thing that within the next 10 days they should be able to really curtail. What does it take? Yes.
I must sincerely thank this set of panelists. Professor Atairu Jega, the former INEC chairman, thank you so much. It's good to see you again, Prof.
Thank you.
Honorable Nnamdi, former House of Representatives member, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Shil, for having me.
And our very good president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Olumide Apata, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Alhaji Yabaji Sani, the national chairman of ipob, thank you so much, Alhaji, for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Also, Larry Arugundade, David Anyele, and Professor Remi Sonaya, all of those who contributed in this panel. We have quite an interesting conversation there.